If you're the kind of person who keeps attracting emotionally unavailable people, this is for you. If you don't change this pattern, you'll keep spending Friday nights waiting on maybe plans from people who never really show up. Today I'll show you why you attract them and give you one rule and one line that change how you respond. We'll use it in a real Friday night text situation where you'd normally drop everything just to feel chosen. If that sounds like something you need, stay with me. You're staring at your phone again. The chat is right there, the last message from them sitting unanswered for hours, even though you saw they were active on Instagram 10 minutes ago. Your stomach feels tight, your chest heavy, and you keep telling yourself, they're just busy, it's fine, while some part of you knows it doesn't feel fine at all. Here's the thing almost no one tells you clearly: if you keep attracting emotionally unavailable people, it's not because you're cursed or too much. It's because your mind and nervous system have learned to treat crumbs as proof of connection, and calm, consistent attention as suspicious or boring. You know the pattern. At first, things feel intense and exciting. They text a lot, they flirt hard, you stay up late talking, they say things like, "I feel like I can tell you anything." Then, slowly, their replies get shorter. Plans get vague. They say they're not great with feelings or bad at texting. You start overthinking each message you send and rereading their last three, trying to decode what changed. You tell your friends you're fine, but you're not. You're losing sleep, refreshing your apps, and quietly wondering what's wrong with you that people never fully choose you. If nothing changes, this pattern doesn't just cost you one person, it eats years of your life, your self-respect, and your belief that deep, mutual love is even possible for you. Today, we're going to slow all of that down. By the time we're done, you'll be able to spot red flags of emotional unavailability much earlier, before you've already bonded. You'll have simple sentences you can use to set the pace of a new connection instead of just going along with whatever they want. You'll know how to treat your need for real closeness as valid, instead of something you need to hide or shrink. And you'll see how to choose people who actually have the capacity to show up. Educational content inspired by classical Stoic texts. Not medical, psychological, or legal advice. If you want steady Stoic focus lessons on emotional control, boundaries, and relationships every week, this is the channel for you. Stay with me until the very end, and while you're here, hit like, tap subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. We're going to move step by step. First, we'll pull apart what emotional unavailability actually is, beyond the buzzword, so you can see the behavior clearly instead of blaming your worth. Next, we'll look at why you're drawn to these people in the first place, and why familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar respect. Then, we'll look at the role you play in the dance, overgiving, overexplaining, and chasing, and how to gently step out of that position. After that, we'll walk through what early red flags really look like in texts, dates, and everyday plans, and how to respond calmly when you see them. Finally, we'll bring it all together in a real Friday night situation, where you feel that old panic rise up and you do something completely different. There's a specific moment later where you'll see yourself sitting on your couch on a Friday night, watching the three dots appear and disappear from someone who keeps you guessing. In that moment, you'll watch yourself use one line we'll practice, and feel the whole evening shift away from obsession and into peace. Keep listening, that scene might be the one that finally breaks this pattern open for you. There's a reason you keep ending up with people who can't meet you emotionally, and it's not that you have a broken picker. The first big shift is recognizing that emotional unavailability isn't mysterious. It's visible. It shows up in patterns: how they communicate, how they handle conflict, how they talk about their past, how they respond when you share a feeling. When you don't name those patterns, you fill the silence with stories about what's wrong with you. When you do name them, you start to see that what's wrong is the fit. Think about what happens when you meet someone new. They're charming, they're witty, and they tell you they've just been really focused on work or that they haven't met anyone worth committing to. They mention a bad breakup, or a messy divorce, or a situation that never really became official. You feel empathy, which is good, but you quietly skip over what they're really saying. Commitment and emotional intimacy have been complicated for them for a long time. If you never slow down to catch that, you walk right past their own description of their limitations and start imagining yourself as the exception. The stakes here are simple. If you don't learn to see and believe what people show you about their capacity, you will keep investing in projects instead of partners, and you will keep confusing your value with their readiness. This matters because, as the Stoics like Marcus Aurelius kept reminding themselves, peace comes from working with reality, not fantasy. When you look at someone's actions and history clearly, you're standing on solid ground. When you ignore what's in front of you and cling to what you hope they'll become, you're at war with the present moment. That war always costs you energy and self-trust. Emotional unavailability isn't an insult you throw at someone, it's a description of how much emotional responsibility and reciprocity they're able and willing to offer right now. You might wish it were more, but wishing doesn't make someone ready. So here's one line you can use for yourself, and, later, even out loud if it fits. The line is, I'm going to take what they're showing me at face value. You can add to it, if they say they're not great at relationships, I will believe them. If they tell me they're not ready, I will not volunteer to fix that. It might feel harsh at first, especially if you're used to seeing potential instead of patterns, but this is how a calmer, more grounded version of you operates. You stop arguing with reality. Picture a simple North American scene. You meet someone through friends at a small get-together. You end up in a corner of the living room talking about music and your favorite coffee shops. A few days later, they text you. At first, it's consistent. Good morning texts. Memes. Little check-ins between classes or meetings. Then, about 2 weeks in, the tone shifts. They start saying things like, I'm terrible at texting, or I'm just really emotionally messed up from my last relationship with a laughing emoji. They talk a lot about how their ex hurt them, and how they haven't really processed it. You feel bad for them. You tell them you're a safe place. You start sending long, supportive messages. They reply with a thumbs up or thanks. You would take this as a challenge. You'd think, if I just show them enough love and patience, they'll heal and choose me. Now you notice the mismatch. Your emotional effort is high, theirs is low. Now you remember the line, I'm going to take what they're showing me at face value. You don't argue with their own description of themselves. You sit with what that actually means for your heart. A tiny action you can take today is this. Think about one person in your life, past or present, who has told you in words that they're bad at relationships, not ready, or emotionally distant. Write down, in one sentence, what they told you about themselves. Then write one sentence about how you responded to that information at the time. Did you believe them, or did you quietly decide you'd be the one who finally gets through to them? Just noticing that is powerful. You're training your mind to connect what people say with how you respond, instead of brushing it aside. Right now, take a slow breath with me. In through your nose, feel your chest and belly rise, hold for a count of 2, and then let it out gently through your mouth. As you breathe out, bring one face to mind, that person you keep trying to decode. Notice one thing they've told you or shown you that points to emotional unavailability. Don't judge it. Just acknowledge, this is real. This is part of the picture. You don't have to decide anything yet. You're just choosing to see clearly. Hold on to this habit of taking people at face value, because when we get to that Friday night moment later, it's going to help you choose peace instead of chasing. There's another layer to this. It's not just that some people are emotionally unavailable. It's that part of you is drawn to that pattern. That can be hard to admit. You might say, why would I ever be attracted to someone who can't show up for me? But if you look closely, you'll see that what you call chemistry often feels a lot like anxiety. Your heart races, your thoughts spin, you're unsure where you stand. It's intense. It grabs your attention. Meanwhile, when someone stable and emotionally present shows up, you might feel less spark, more calm boredom, or even irritation. Your nervous system confuses calm with danger and chaos with love. This is where your past quietly writes the script. If you grew up with a parent who was hot and cold, distracted, unpredictable, or emotionally shut down, your body learned that love means working hard for scraps of attention. Consistency might feel unfamiliar. When someone texts you back right away, shows up when they say they will, and asks questions about you, the part of you that's used to chasing might think, this is too easy, something's off. The stakes are high here because, if you don't notice this pattern, you will keep walking away from the exact kind of person who can give you what you want and running toward the exact kind who can't. From a Stoic angle, this is about training your judgments. Epictetus pointed out that it's not events that disturb you but the opinions you hold about them. In this case, the event is someone treating you with steady respect. The opinion is, this is boring, there's no spark. Another event is someone keeping you guessing. The opinion is, I feel chemistry, this must be real. If you never question those opinions, you will keep calling anxiety love and peace settling. Here's a line you can use with yourself when you feel that spark with someone who's inconsistent. The line is, just because my body feels activated doesn't mean this is good for me. You can follow it with, I'm allowed to be curious, but I don't have to rush toward this feeling. When you say this, you're not shaming yourself. You're gently separating sensation from value. Your racing heart is information, not a command. Picture a familiar scenario. You match with someone on a dating app. Their profile is short but intriguing. They have a couple of photos with friends, one at a concert, one hiking somewhere pretty. They message you first, which feels good. The conversation moves to texting. Sometimes they respond within minutes, and it feels like you're in your own little world. Other times, they disappear for a day or two without explanation. When they do reappear, the messages are flirty and flattering. No real questions about you, but plenty of, you're so different from other people, or, I can tell you're special. Your body responds. You find yourself checking your phone more, thinking about what to wear on a future date that hasn't even been planned yet. You feel a mix of excitement and unease. Old you would lean into the excitement and try to perform your way into their attention. New you pauses and says, just because I feel this rush doesn't mean it's a sign of deep connection. It might be a sign that my nervous system has found something familiar. A tiny, measurable action you can take is this: the next time you feel that huge rush toward someone whose behavior is inconsistent, don't schedule a date right away. Give it 48 hours. In those 48 hours, don't start confessing how much you like them or planning your future together. Just observe. How do they show up? Do they ask you anything real? Do they follow through on small things, like saying they'll text later? You're not playing games, you're collecting data. You're letting your mind catch up with your chemistry. Right now, if you can, put your feet flat on the floor. Relax your shoulders away from your ears. Take another slow breath in and out. Bring to mind someone from your past who gave you that intense chemical rush but never actually showed up for you. Notice how your body feels as you remember them. Tight? Warm? Heavy? Now picture someone who was steady, maybe even too nice or too available in your mind at the time. Notice how your body feels when you think of them. It might be quieter. Ask yourself, very gently, what if calm isn't wrong? What if I've just been trained to chase chaos? Say that question out loud once, even if it feels strange. You're teaching your whole system that you're willing to value peace. Another reason you keep getting pulled into emotionally lopsided situations is the role you end up playing. You're not just bumping into distant people by accident, you're also stepping into a familiar position: the fixer, the healer, the one who understands, and the one who stays. On the surface, it looks noble. You're patient. You're loving. You're ride or die. But underneath, you're often abandoning yourself to hold their world together. You can see this pattern if you look at the balance of effort. Who brings up hard conversations? Who initiates most of the texts? Who apologizes first, even when both of you contributed to the tension? For many of the people who end up with emotionally unavailable partners, the answer is the same: it's you. You're the one reading articles about attachment, listening to podcasts about communication, sending thoughtful messages trying to coax them into vulnerability. Meanwhile, they keep their cards close, drop in and out, and make half-jokes about not being good at feelings. The stakes here are huge. If you don't see your side of the dance, you'll burn out trying to do both your emotional work and theirs. From a Stoic perspective, this is where you come back to what's actually yours to carry. Seneca talked a lot about the danger of spending your life on what doesn't belong to you. When you're constantly trying to manage someone else's readiness, mood, and healing, you're spending your life on their work instead of yours. You're stepping outside your sphere of control and then wondering why you feel anxious and powerless. The more you overfunction, the more space there is for them to underfunction. Here's a sentence you can practice when you notice yourself sliding into fixer mode. The line is, I care about you, but your healing is your responsibility. You don't even have to say it to them yet. Start by saying it to yourself. You're not shutting down compassion. You're putting it back inside healthy limits. You follow it up with, my responsibility is to protect my own emotional health, not to prove my worth by saving someone. Imagine a scene in a North American city. You're sitting at your kitchen table late at night, laptop open, half a glass of water on the table. Your phone buzzes. It's them. They're venting again, saying things like, I'm just messed up, everyone leaves me, I don't know why I can't be normal in relationships. You feel your heart squeeze. You start typing out a long, thoughtful response, telling them they're not broken, sending resources, reassuring them that you're not going anywhere. You hit send and then sits there, waiting for a response that's often a simple thanks or nothing at all. Now you pause and notice the pattern. You ask yourself, wait, when I get to talk about my feelings? When do my needs get space? You remember the line, I care about you, but your healing is your responsibility. You decide to respond with something shorter, like, I'm sorry you're going through that. Have you thought about talking to a professional about it? You're not being cold, you're gently handing their work back to them. A tiny action you can take today is to choose one conversation where you usually overfunction and scale your response down. Maybe there's a person who constantly unloads on you late at night. Instead of staying up until 2 a.m. talking them through their crisis, you set a limit. You reply with 1 or 2 supportive lines and then add, it's late here, and I'm going to get some sleep. We can talk more another time. Then you actually put your phone down. The measure of success isn't how they react, it's whether you honored your own energy. Take a slow practice moment with me. Close your eyes if that feels safe. Picture yourself standing on one side of a line painted on the ground. On your side of the line are your feelings, your time, your decisions, your healing. On the other side are theirs. See yourself frequently stepping over that line, picking up their stuff, carrying it, juggling it, trying not to drop anything. Notice how heavy you feel. Now, in your mind, gently set down what doesn't belong to you. Step back over to your side. Say quietly, their healing is theirs. My work is mine. Breathe in, hold, and breathe out. You don't have to fix anyone to deserve love. Now let's talk about the early red flags, because this is where you have the most power. Emotional unavailability isn't just revealed in dramatic exits or big fights. It shows up in tiny, repeatable behaviors at the start. If you don't know what to look for, you'll explain these away. If you do know, you can make different choices long before you're deeply invested. Some red flags are about consistency. They text a lot one week and then disappear the next. They apologize with charm but never change the pattern. Some are about curiosity. They love talking about themselves but rarely ask you questions or remember your answers. Some are about accountability. When they hurt you, even in small ways, they minimize it or flip it back on you. There are also timing flags. Maybe they only contact you late at night or only when they're bored or lonely, not when it would actually cost them time. The stakes here are that, if you don't respect these early signals, you end up months or years into something that was misaligned from day one, trying to negotiate for basic respect. This is where you start practicing a new response. Instead of leaning in harder when things feel shaky, you slow down. You don't have to punish anyone or make dramatic announcements. You're simply running a quiet experiment. If I stop overcompensating, what happens? This is very much in line with Stoic practice. You're testing your impressions instead of believing them outright. You're allowing reality to reveal itself. Here's a microscript you can use when someone keeps being vague about plans or inconsistent in their communication. The line is, "I like clarity, so if you're unsure, it's okay to say that." You're giving them an opening to be honest without you carrying the whole burden of guessing. You can also say, "I'm looking for something consistent. If that's not where you are, I respect it, but I'll need to step back." Those sentences are simple, but they do something powerful. They put your standards on the table without attacking their character. Picture a specific North American example. You've been seeing someone for a few weeks. You've gone out to a couple of restaurants, spent time at each other's places, and maybe even met a friend or two. But every time you try to talk about what you're doing, they dodge it. They say, "Let's not put labels on it," or "Why stress about defining things?" Meanwhile, they get jealous when you mention talking to someone else. On Thursday, they tell you, "Let's hang out this weekend." You keep Friday night open. On Friday afternoon, they still haven't followed up. You would wait, maybe text them first, and accept a last-minute late-night invite just to feel chosen. Now you notice the pattern. It's not the first time they've been vague like this. You decide to send, "Hey, I hadn't heard from you about tonight, so I made other plans. In the future, I would like to have things confirmed earlier." You're not punishing them. You're calmly describing your reality and your preference. A tiny, measurable action you can take is this: pick one person in your life whose communication has been consistently inconsistent. Instead of chasing or filling in the gaps, give the situation a clear container. Decide, if they don't reach out by X time, I'm making other plans. Then actually follow through. Don't send the reminder text. Don't hover over your phone. Go do something else, see a movie, call a friend, clean your space, go for a walk. You're not playing hard to get, you're practicing being hard to waste. Let's pause for another slow practice moment. Right now, bring to mind one recent time when you were left hanging about plans. Maybe it was a date that never got confirmed, or a call that kept being pushed. Feel the tightness that comes up in your chest or stomach as you remember waiting. Now picture an alternate version of you in that scene. This version looks at the clock, takes a slow breath, and says, "I'm not leaving my night in limbo for someone who can't be clear." They send a simple message if they want, or they send nothing at all, and then they move on with their evening. Imagine how it feels to be that person. Say quietly, "I'm allowed to choose clarity over chaos." Let that sentence land in your body, not just your mind. So far, we've talked about understanding emotional unavailability and noticing red flags, but there's another key shift: defining what emotional availability actually looks like for you. If you don't have a clear picture of what you want, you'll say yes to anything that feels better than your worst experiences. That's a low bar. You deserve more than "not as bad as the last one." Emotional availability has some basic ingredients. It looks like someone who can notice and name their own feelings without dumping them on you. It looks like someone who can hear your feelings without making it all about them. It looks like someone who takes responsibility for their behavior instead of blaming their ex, their childhood, or the universe for everything. It looks like someone whose effort is steady, not just big gestures followed by vanishing acts. When you don't have these standards in mind, you'll get swept up in big chemistry or big words and only realize months later that there's no real emotional partnership underneath. From a Stoic lens, this is about virtue in action. You're not just looking for someone who makes you feel a certain way, you're looking at their character over time. Marcus wrote a lot about examining people's habits rather than their appearances or speeches. It's the same here. You're watching for whether this person has the courage to be honest, the justice to treat you fairly, the moderation to regulate their impulses, and the wisdom to learn from their mistakes. You're not expecting perfection, but you're refusing to pretend that lack of basic emotional skills is romantic. Here's a microscript for stating your standards without sounding like you're reading a list of demands. The line is, "I'm looking for something where we can talk honestly about how we feel, even when it's uncomfortable." You can add, "Consistency matters a lot to me. Small daily effort means more than occasional big gestures." You're not interrogating them, you're sharing your values. People who are even somewhat emotionally available will recognize themselves in that description and either lean in or bow out. People who are deeply unavailable will often feel threatened or dismissive. Either way, you learn something real. Picture a North American scenario. You're sitting across from someone at a quiet coffee shop, the kind with big windows and people typing on laptops at nearby tables. You've been on 3 or 4 dates. Things have been pretty light so far. Today, they mention they've been stressed about work and snapped at a coworker. You listen. Then you decide to gently bring in your standards. You say, "I appreciate you sharing that. For me, one of the most important things in a relationship is being able to talk honestly, even when we're upset. I'm not perfect, but I'm really working on that." How do you usually handle conflict in relationships? You would be afraid to ask that, worried about scaring them away. You know that if this question scares them, they're probably not ready for what you're looking for anyway. A tiny action you can take today is to write down 3 qualities of emotional availability that matter most to you. Not 20, just 3. For example, follows through on what they say, can apologize without making excuses, shows interest in my inner world. Then, for the next week, use those 3 as a quiet filter. When you talk to someone you're interested in, ask yourself, what do their actions tell me about these 3 qualities? Don't overanalyze, just notice. Take a moment now to sit with this. Put your hand on your chest if that feels comfortable. Feel the warmth of your palm. Take a gentle breath. Ask yourself, if I truly believed I deserve someone who can meet me emotionally, what would I stop tolerating? You don't have to act on the answer today. Just let it rise. Say softly, my standards are not too much. They're a reflection of my self-respect. Saying this out loud helps your nervous system hear it as something real, not just a nice quote. Another piece of this puzzle is how you handle communication boundaries, especially in the digital world. Text, DM, and social media can turn even a small connection into a constant presence in your mind. If you don't have boundaries around how and when you communicate, emotionally unavailable people can end up occupying far more space in your life than their actual effort deserves. Think about what happens when you don't hear from someone you're interested in. Your brain fills in the gaps. You reread old messages. You draft and delete new ones. You screenshot conversations to friends, asking for interpretations. Meanwhile, the other person might be living their life, half engaged, popping in when they feel like it. Without boundaries, your time, focus, and emotional energy become open access. The stakes are clear, your day becomes organized around their unpredictability, and you teach yourself that your schedule and peace are negotiable, but their attention isn't. A Stoic approach to this is to create personal rules that protect your mind. You can't control when someone chooses to text you, but you can control how you respond and how quickly. You can decide, ahead of time, what you will and won't do with your phone. This isn't game playing, it's self-governance. You're choosing not to be yanked around by every ping. Here's a microscript you can send when someone starts expecting immediate replies from you or gets annoyed that you don't respond instantly. The line is, I'm not on my phone all the time, so my replies can be delayed, but I do respond when I can. You can also add, if needed, if you need real-time responses, I might not be the best fit for that. You're not apologizing for having a life. You're making your boundaries visible. Imagine an everyday North American example. You're at work, at your desk or on the floor or in your car between deliveries. Your phone buzzes. It's them. They send a flirty message, maybe a suggestive photo, and you smile. Then they send another message 20 minutes later, wow, leaving me to read? You were in a meeting. You weren't even on your phone. You would panic, type out a long explanation, and start checking your phone even more obsessively to avoid upsetting them. Now you remember your rule. You wait until your break, then respond with, hey, I was at work. I'm not on my phone constantly. I like continuing this, but I also have responsibilities. If they respond with respect, great. If they sulk or try to guilt trip you, that tells you something important early. A tiny action you can take is to set a specific reply window for emotionally loaded messages. For example, you can decide, I don't respond to tense or confusing texts immediately. I give it at least 30 minutes, preferably an hour. During that time, you don't obsess over the message. You go for a short walk, drink some water, and do a small task. When the hour is up, you reread the message with a clearer head and decide how you want to respond. You're slowing down the cycle, which reduces the power of their unpredictability over your emotions. Let's practice slowing down right now. Think of the last text you got that made your heart jump in an uncomfortable way. Maybe it was a "we need to talk" or a vague "can we rain check" with no follow-up. Remember the urge you had to respond instantly or to spiral. Now, imagine the same moment but with a different response. You see the message, you feel the jolt, and you literally put your phone face down on the table. You take 3 slow breaths. You remind yourself, I don't owe anyone an immediate emotional reaction. You get up, refill your water, and stretch your shoulders. Only after that do you pick up your phone again. Say quietly, I'm allowed to take my time. That sentence is a small shield between you and the chaos of someone else's inconsistency. We also need to talk about your belief about your own needs. People who keep attracting emotionally unavailable partners often share a quiet story inside. I'm too much, or I'm needy, or if I want too much closeness, people leave. That belief makes you shrink your needs on purpose. You downplay how much communication you actually want. You pretend to be okay with casualness when you're really not. You say yes to low maintenance when your heart is craving real partnership. Emotional unavailability slips into that gap. Notice how this shows up in your language. You might say, I don't need much, I'm really chill, even though you feel hurt when someone goes days without checking in. You might tell yourself, I shouldn't say anything, it's not that big of a deal, when they cancel last minute for the 3rd time. You train yourself not to speak, then conclude that no one ever chooses you fully. The stakes are that you can end up in a half-life version of love, where you're always bracing for disappointment and calling it independence. From a Stoic standpoint, your needs themselves aren't the problem, it's the judgment you're attaching to them. Wanting connection, consistency, and care is not a character flaw. It's part of being human. The Stoics weren't anti-feeling, they were pro-clarity. They wanted you to see clearly what you value and act in line with it. If you value deep, mutual connection but keep agreeing to shallow, one-sided arrangements, you're in conflict with yourself. That inner conflict is what drains you. Here's a microscript for when you're tempted to minimize your needs. The line is, this need is not too much, it's just information about what fits me. You can add, if it's too much for them, that doesn't mean it's too much, period. You're separating the validity of your desire from one person's capacity. Picture a North American example. You've been seeing someone for a couple of months. You're not trying to move in together or plan a wedding. You just want to know if you're on the same page. You'd like to see them more than once every week and a half. Each time you start to bring up how you feel, you hear a voice in your head saying, don't scare them off. Be cool. Old you would swallow the feeling and keep waiting, hoping they spontaneously step up. New you decides to risk honesty. You say, I like spending time with you and I'm looking for something where we're in contact more regularly. Right now I'm feeling a bit on the back burner, and that doesn't work for me long term. You're not demanding, you're naming your experience. If they say, I can't give you more than this, you believe them and, as painful as it is, you start planning your exit. A tiny action you can take today is to write one of your relational needs in a clear sentence, without apology. For example, I need regular communication, not days of silence, or I need someone who is willing to talk about feelings sometimes. Then, say that sentence out loud in a neutral tone, as if you're saying, I'm allergic to peanuts or I don't work weekends. Practice delivering your needs without layers of shame or justification. Take a slow practice moment with me. Sit however you are and let your shoulders drop. Take a deep breath in through your nose, and as you exhale, say quietly, my needs are valid. It might feel cheesy, say it anyway. Again, inhale, exhale, and this time say, the right people aren't scared by my honesty. Feel how your body responds. Maybe there's resistance, maybe relief. Both are okay. You're untangling years of messaging that taught you to shrink yourself to be chosen. There's one more tough truth to face. Sometimes you stay with emotionally unavailable people because leaving feels like failure. You've already invested time, energy, and emotional labor. You've defended them to your friends. You've built a story in your head about your future together. Walking away can feel like admitting you were wrong, like all the effort was wasted. So you stay. You wait for their breakthrough. You promise yourself you'll leave if it doesn't get better soon, but soon keeps moving. This is where you confront sunk cost. The more you've put in, the harder it feels to step back, even when the present reality is painful. You might tell yourself, we've been through so much, it has to pay off, or, they've opened up more than with anyone else. You might think, if I leave now, someone else will get the version of them I worked for. Underneath those thoughts is fear, fear of starting over, fear of being alone, and fear that you won't find anything better. The stakes are obvious. If you let sunk cost make your decisions, you can spend years waiting for someone to become who they're not. Stoic writing is blunt about this. You only ever own the present moment and your choices within it. You can't get past years back by staying in a situation that continues to hurt you. You honor your past efforts not by doubling down on a losing pattern, but by learning from it. There's dignity in saying, I gave what I could here, and now I'm choosing differently. Here's a microscript you can use with yourself when you're tempted to stay purely because of history. The line is, time invested does not equal a future owed. You can add, I'm allowed to change my mind based on who they are now, not who I hoped they'd become. Say it slowly. Let it cut through the fog. Picture a North American example. You're sitting in your car in a grocery store parking lot at night, engine off, your breath fogging up the windshield a little. You've just had another circular argument with your partner about how distant they are. They said, again, that they're trying, but nothing specific has changed. You're scrolling through old photos on your phone, vacations, birthdays, inside jokes. Your chest aches. Old you would stare at those photos and think, we've been together so long. I can't just throw this away. Now you remember the line, time invested does not equal a future owed. You look honestly at the present, how lonely you feel even when you're sitting next to them on the couch, how you keep censoring yourself so you don't start something, how your body feels more anxious than loved. You let yourself cry if you need to, but you stop using the past as a chain. A tiny action you can take is to have one honest conversation with yourself on paper. Write down the answer to 2 questions. If I met this person today, knowing what I know now, would I choose them? And if my best friend described this exact relationship to me, what would I advise them? You don't have to act immediately on what you discover, but don't ignore it. The point is to pull your attention out of the past story and into the present truth. Let's slow down together. Put one hand gently on your heart and one on your belly. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale, imagine letting go of the idea that walking away means you failed. Say quietly, leaving what hurts me is not failure, it's self-respect. Repeat it once more. Even if you're not ready to leave, you're planting a seed. You're reminding yourself that you are allowed to make different choices, even after years of choosing one way. Now let's bring this into a concrete, stressful moment, because theory is one thing and Friday night alone with your thoughts is another. Imagine it's a cold evening in a North American city. It's Friday. You've had a long week. All day, you've been half expecting a text from the person you're seeing about plans. They mentioned earlier in the week that maybe you'd do something. No time, no place. Just maybe. Part of you knew that wasn't a real plan, but hope is sneaky. By late afternoon, your phone is still silent. You scroll through Instagram and see they've posted a story from a bar with friends. Your chest tightens. The old version of you would spiral here. You'd start rehearsing what you did wrong, wondering if you were too distant, too clingy, too quiet, and too loud. You might send a casual text like, hey, what's up tonight, pretending you haven't noticed the silence. If they replied hours later with sorry, crazy night, rain check, you'd swallow your hurt and say, no worries, even though your whole evening had revolved around them. Tonight is different. Earlier this week, when they said maybe, you remembered your new commitment to clarity. You told yourself, if I don't hear a concrete plan by Friday at 3, I'm making my own plans. That was your tiny action. When 3 o'clock came and went with nothing, you felt the familiar wave of disappointment, but you honored your rule. You texted a friend about grabbing dinner or decided to finally start that show you've been putting off, the one you wanted to watch with someone else but got tired of waiting to be chosen for. You put your phone on the table instead of in your hand. Around 7:30, your phone buzzes. It's a text from them, hey, sorry, tonight got away from me. You up? We could still hang. You feel the old reaction surge. Your heart starts racing, your fingers itch to type, yeah, sure. Where should I meet you? You picture yourself rushing to get ready, forgiving the casual disregard because at least they're reaching out. For a moment, the craving to feel picked is louder than everything else. This is the turning point. You pause. You remember what we talked about, taking people at face value, not confusing anxiety with chemistry, honoring your standards, respecting your time. You notice the facts. They didn't make a solid plan, they didn't communicate all day, and now, at their convenience, they're asking if you're available. You also notice your body, the tightness, the urge to respond instantly. Instead of reacting, you take a breath. In, hold, out. You quietly say to yourself, just because my body feels activated doesn't mean this is good for me. You let a minute pass. Then another. You repeat the sentence, time invested does not equal a future owed. You ask yourself, if my best friend told me this story, what would I say? The answer comes quickly, you deserve someone who makes a real plan with you, not a backup text. It stings, because you want it tonight with them. But you also want a life where your needs are not constantly brushed aside. You pick up your phone and type a different kind of message than you would have before. You write, hey, I actually made other plans when I didn't hear from you earlier. In the future, I need things to be confirmed ahead of time if we're going to hang out. Your thumb hovers over the send button. Old fear rises. What if they get mad? What if they think I'm high maintenance? What if they pull away? Then you remember another line. This need is not too much. It's just information about what fits me. You hit send. They reply a few minutes later. Maybe they say, wow, okay, with an eye roll emoji. Maybe they say, my bad, I'll be clearer next time. Maybe they go silent. Whatever their response, you learn something about their capacity. If they're emotionally available and truly interested, they'll adjust. If they're not, they'll either ghost or keep minimizing. Either way, your message was not about controlling them, it was about standing up for your own time. After you respond, you put your phone on Do Not Disturb for a while. You go back to your evening. Maybe you're at dinner, laughing with a friend. Maybe you're on your couch, eating something simple, watching that show. At some point, you feel the old ache rise up, that feeling of I wish this person would just choose me fully. Instead of pushing it down, you let yourself feel it for a moment. You place your hand over your heart and whisper, I'm choosing me right now. You take a slow breath in and a slow breath out. You're not pretending you don't care. You're caring about yourself in the middle of the disappointment. Later that night, before bed, you check your phone again. There might be more messages from them, there might not. Either way, you look at the conversation through a new lens. You see the pattern, the vague maybe, the last-minute text, your clear boundary. You realize you just did something you've rarely done before. You didn't rearrange your life to accommodate someone else's unpredictability. You didn't beg, you didn't ghost, and you didn't play games. You simply honored the standard you set. As you brush your teeth or lie in the dark, you think back over everything we've walked through, seeing emotional unavailability clearly, understanding why chaos feels like home, stepping out of fixer mode, spotting red flags, naming your needs, and refusing to let sunk cost trap you. You feel a quiet pride mixed with grief. Pride, because you showed up for yourself. Grief, because part of you still wants this person to become someone they're not. You allow both. Before you fall asleep, you take one slower, intentional breath and repeat the sentence we practiced: leaving what hurts me is not failure, it's self-respect. You don't know exactly what you'll do about this connection yet, but you know this: you're not going back to the old way of abandoning yourself to feel halfway chosen. What we've really been talking about this whole time is the difference between chasing emotionally distant people and choosing emotionally present ones, starting with the way you treat yourself. When you react from old patterns, you take inconsistency as a challenge, anxiety as chemistry, and crumbs as proof you should stay. When you respond from a more grounded place, you pause, notice what's actually happening, and make choices that protect your peace, even when your feelings are loud. First, we sat in the pain of waiting by the phone, of being half-chosen again and again, and we named what that costs you in sleep, focus, and self-respect. Then we started defining emotional unavailability not as an insult but as a pattern you can see: inconsistency, lack of curiosity, avoidance of real responsibility. Next, we looked at why you're drawn to that pattern in the first place, how your nervous system can confuse calm with danger and chaos with love. After that, we turned the light on yourself, not to blame you, but to see where you've been sliding into fixer mode, doing the emotional heavy lifting for two. We unpacked the early red flags you tend to explain away, and how to respond with clarity instead of panic. We talked about naming your standards for emotional availability, instead of just avoiding your worst-case scenarios. Then we got practical with communication boundaries and reply windows, because your phone habits shape your heart habits more than you realize. We faced the hard truth of sunk cost and the fear of leaving. Finally, we sat with that Friday night scene where you did things differently and chose yourself. Now I want to crystallize this into a few practical moves you can actually remember. Today's lesson is really about learning to respond instead of react in your relationships. Reacting is instant, driven by fear of losing someone. Responding is slower, driven by respect for your own needs. Reacting is checking your phone every 2 minutes and saying yes to last-minute texts no matter how it makes you feel. Responding is deciding in advance what works for you and sticking to it, even when your heart is pounding. Think back to the beginning, when we named the pain of being pulled into emotionally lopsided situations. You saw how often you've ended up questioning your worth because someone else couldn't or wouldn't show up. Then remember when we talked about chemistry versus calm, how your body might be wired to chase what feels familiar, not what's actually good. After that, recall the moment we described you at your kitchen table, half therapist, half partner, pouring out emotional labor while the other person stayed vague and distant. Remember the small red flags, late-night-only texts, zero follow-through, endless maybe plans, that you've tolerated, sometimes for years. Think of the coffee shop scene where you named your need for honest conversations, and how brave that felt. Remember setting reply windows and choosing not to treat every ping like an emergency. Let the parking lot moment replay in your mind, where you saw history for what it was instead of letting it dictate your future. And then bring up the Friday night where you chose clarity over crumbs and, for maybe the first time, didn't abandon your own evening. To make this real, here are 3 specific things you can do today. First, choose one person, past or present, who has shown you emotional unavailability. Write down one sentence they've said that clearly described their limits, like "I'm bad at relationships" or "I'm not ready for anything serious," and then one sentence about how you responded at the time. This will train you to connect words with actions. Second, set one clear communication boundary for yourself. For example, decide that you won't wait past a certain time for vague maybe plans before making your own plans. Actually write that boundary down and follow it once this week. Third, choose one of your needs and practice saying it out loud in a neutral tone, even if it's just to your mirror: "I need consistent communication," or "I need someone willing to talk about feelings sometimes." You're rehearsing for real conversations where you'll stop shrinking to fit inside someone else's comfort. If all of this resonates, the next thing you'll probably want to learn is how to hold your boundaries in conflict without exploding or shutting down. That's where we'll go deeper into how to stay calm when someone pushes back, how to know when to keep negotiating, and how to recognize when it's time to step away completely. Think of a lesson on how to stop arguing in circles with people who don't really listen, or staying grounded when someone calls you too sensitive as a natural follow-up to what you've learned here. You're not doomed to attract only emotionally unavailable people. You're in the middle of retraining your attention, your reactions, and your standards. There will be days when you slip back into old patterns, when you reply too fast or make excuses for someone who isn't meeting you. That doesn't erase your progress. It just means you get another chance to pause, breathe, and choose a different response next time. If you want a whole library of Stoic focus lessons on emotional control, boundaries, and relationships, this is what we do here every week. If you feel messages like this need to reach more people, hit like, tap subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.